Energy Work Part 4. It is at this point that I can hear some of you grumbling that this is a waste of your time. I can hear somebody thinking I'm happily married. Why do I need to know this?
Well, there is something everyone needs, and that is more money. Money may be considered, by some who can afford it, to be the root of all evil, but the evil that money is the root of, is benevolence itself, compared to the evils that come from the lack of it. Let us be honest, and realize that more sleep is lost, and more dinners ruined, by a lack of money, than by any other cause. When he presented his peculiar ideas about geography to the Spanish court, Columbus cinched the argument by saying, "Gold is most excellent.
With gold all things may be obtained."
The first prerequisite to getting your psychic powers to bring you money is good old-fashioned greed.
Now don't be shocked by that.
I know it has unfortunately become fashionable to attack greed, again by people who have so much money that they don't know what to do with it, but remember that if it were not for greed there would be no human progress.
It is the motive of wishing for wealth that caused Columbus to sail over the edge of the world and land upside down in America.
It is the motive of greed that causes people to start business and invent things to bring about a betterment of the human condition. But perhaps we should call it desire instead to appease some of you conservatives out there.
You cannot obtain what you do not first desire, and you must desire it in as positive a way as possible. Now by positive, I do not mean some gushy, disgusting nonsense about helping humanity.
The greatest fortunes have been made by those whose only desire to help humanity was over the nearest cliff.
No, by positive, I mean that you truly desire wealth, without that desire being polluted by worry. Believe me, I know from experience. And in my case, the worry was so bad that I had to farm the psychic work out, because I could not stop worrying. How people think about money has a lot to do with how they get it. Let me explain it like this.
Before the stock market laid its famous egg in 1929, there was tremendous economic activity. The businesses were booming, the factories were spewing goods as fast as people could buy them.
So what the hell happened?
The minds of the people became so paralyzed, that people literally did not believe that they were still there.
The same applies to money.
To bring money in, you must first start thinking of yourself as being, if not rich, then at least prosperous.
Look around you. You have your health, and no, kidney stones and the sniffles do not count against that. As long as your brain is functioning, that is what counts, because that is what really matters. All else is a messy appendage.
You have this book, which is a very, very valuable piece of merchandise indeed, because the stuff in here is going to help you.
You have a capacity to learn. No matter how poor you think you are, you live in luxury compared to the kings of the past.
Some of them would have given half their kingdom for an air conditioner, let alone a flush toilet.
You have to get past the immediate circumstances and realize that whatever else you may be, you are not poor.
Broke maybe, but never poor.
So what I want you to do is every night before you go to bed, silently or aloud, catalogue those things which you possess that you would count as wealth. Every time you do that, you will program your mind to think in terms of being rich. Remember, wealth attracts wealth. Success attracts success. The reason people get rich is because they think that way. Okay, now that takes care of the first step. As soon as you notice your attitude changing, and believe me, you will notice it, you should begin to meditate on the subject of wealth. In the course of your meditation, imagine yourself in possession of all the material things you want.
The good car, the big house. This act of imagining is very important because it creates the thought form in your own mind, which will ultimately bring those things to you and transforms money from an abstract concept to a concrete reality. You should avoid the mistake I made of visualizing a large check, and sticks to the objects. At this point it is time to begin to charge the etheric body to bring money to you. As you meditate, see the light that fills your body make your etheric body radiate.
A gold or green light. These are the colors most associated with wealth, so these are the colors you must use.
See the colored light fill your body, and bring with it the capacity to make money come to you seemingly out of thin air.
This works. You cannot imagine the number of times I have done this and sources of money have just appeared, out of nowhere. And my friends sort of stare at me, and say that they can't believe I did it.
Perform this exercise every day until you see results. They may not be as spectacular as mine, but they will be there.
and do not get discouraged. Some things take time.
As you continue to charge the etheric body this way, you may begin to get hunches about ways to get money. Hunches that pay off.
Now, important here. This is not to suggest that you go to the racetrack and put your mother's life savings down on a long shot, because you have a hunch about the horse. Use some of that terribly uncommon common sense you have. What you should get are definite ideas on how to make money.
You may dream of a certain job, or someone who is going to hire you, and then find ad for that job in the paper.
If that happens, go apply. The worst thing that can happen is they'll say no, and if that happens, try something else. Do not get discouraged, at least for more than a few hours at a time, because it will happen on occasion. Keep trying. Learn to trust your intuitions, and soon you will learn that they can be quite accurate. Suppose you have a possibility of getting a job, or you are going to try to sell something. You must prepare yourself and the ground for it.
The day before, imagine yourself talking to the person whom you wish to impress. At the same time, imagine him or her being totally impressed with you, and listening attentively to everything you have to say.
Repeat that image when you get up the next morning. Build it in your mind, and when you walk through the door, you will have tremendous confidence. You should also use your etheric body.
Before you go in, meditate and fill that body with energy.
Fill it up and keep it stored in you.
Then, when you finally see the person, send the energy out of your eyes like 2 laser beams, burning directly into his brain. Imagine that these beams are burning directly into his very soul, driving the message through like a heated nail.
With practice, you should be able to do this instantaneously.
You are, after all, working with the speed of thought, so it is not necessary to transmit for very long periods of time.
In fact, this is the sort of thing that is best done quickly, if at all.
Sometimes you will be lucky enough to have met the person you are going to deal with before you make contact about your latest proposal.
If that is the case, you can soften him up with a preliminary bombardment. Okay, I know that analogy may bother some folks, but that is literally what you are going to.
You are going to use your psychic power in exactly the same way an army uses its heavy artillery.
You are going to stand off, and work from a distance, and soften him up before moving in for the kill.
Again, you sit and meditate.
Relax yourself as best as you can, and by now you should be pretty well used to doing that sort of thing. You're transmitting with the assurance that everything you send is going to burn into his subconscious and program him to respond to you. Then comes the question of what do you send? Rule 1, do not send a command.
This is a person whom you want to like both you and your ideas, and you have something to lose by the rejection of either.
Commands in this context can backfire if they hit at the wrong moment.
This is not to say that they should never be used, but you want to be sure, so couch your sending with nice, warm fuzzy thoughts that are soothing and complimentary. Rule 2, unlike the meeting situation, where you have to act as quickly as possible, you should be willing to take your time about this, and send as often as you can, for as long as you can.
As you do all this, try to see the person as clearly as possible.
See him as a happy, very receptive individual who is only too happy to meet you and listen to your pitch.
Think that you will be equally pleased to renew the acquaintance, and send your thoughts in such a way as to convey this.
Incidentally,
this is a good way to cover those little embarrassments that befall us from time to time.
If you have managed to offend the person, just keep thinking to the person how much like him or her.
And you may be amazed at the results.
This brings us to one of the most powerful psychic tools you can put in your toolbox. The stationary thought form, or as I call it, the psychic landmine. It is possible to charge an area with psychic power.
You can charge any place, or anything. For that matter. With enough energy to influence anyone who passes by it. There are even those lucky individuals who have enough power to make a thought form that is visible to people out of virtual thin air, but we are not even going to try that.
And in most cases that sort of thing is very counterproductive anyway.
I have already explained how to create a small thought form, and send it to a specific person. Now you are going to do much the same thing. But in this case, instead of hitting a given individual, it is going to affect everyone who passes near it. This is actually a very simple process and well worth the few minutes it takes to learn it, so let's go back to the lecture hall.
Let us assume that you are going to speak on some arcane subject, like the relationship between the tarot and the commodity market.
You can be reasonably sure that everyone who comes to hear you will be at least slightly interested in your topic. But as you are going to approach it from a slightly unconventional point of view, you are not sure how well it will be received. To deal with this, you can use a stationary thought form. To begin with, you should have a pretty good idea of how the hall you are going to speak in looks. If possible, take a look at it in advance. You create the thought form by the usual methods, but this time you put at the ceiling, over the audience like a lamp. In fact, if you can see it as a lamp, that is so much the better.
See it glow with the light you put into it, and charge it to keep glowing, making everyone who is bathed by it receptive to what you are saying to you and your ideas. See the lamp illuminating the entire hall, leaving no corner uncovered. Charge this lamp form as often as possible, always adding to the charge the command to make everyone who comes into contact with it, like you.
So what will happen with this?
On the day of the lecture, the audience will come in and sit down, not realizing that each individual mind is being manipulated by psychic energy to look favorably upon you. As the beams play over their etheric bodies, they will find themselves instinctively liking you and what you have to say without even questioning why.
There are myriads of other uses for these excellent tools, the number and type of them being bounded only by the imaginations from whence they spring.
There are a few basic rules for their use and they are quite easy to remember.
Number 1. You must be certain that you really want the results that you are programming for.
Number 2. You must keep all commands as simple as possible. Number 3. You must always phrase the command in a positive way, never using a negative in a statement of purpose. Number 4. You must remember to keep charging the thought forms for as long as you wish them to function.
Now, all this may have the appearance of a complicated, psychological game. If you believe that something is going to happen, it will. That you will act unconsciously, in such a way as to make it happen. That is all very good as an argument, but you should also take into account the fact that even if you act on an assumption, is no guarantee that of the fact that somebody else may act to serve your ends. There is more at work here than mere autosuggestion. Never forget that we are dealing with energies that are quite real, have significant evidence to prove their reality, and are quite capable of causing effects at tremendous distances. What is more, the rest of this book is going to be devoted to teaching you how to make and use machines which have been proven to detect and manipulate these energies.